Loki is the third Disney Plus MCU series to come out this year. I believe it's not the last. Maybe we're getting one more, or maybe this is it. Honestly, not sure. I know we have 3 movies coming out, but as far as the shows go, whatever. It's the third one to come out this year, and after the previous 2 got many Emmy nominations, it's safe to say this one might be in the same kind of contingency for next year or whatever. And this show is not about the origins of Loki. It's not about Loki post-Avengers Infinity War, because his neck snap, this is actually the Loki from Avengers Endgame, but when they time travel to the first Avengers movie, so right after he got captured and he picked up the Tesseract, that's the Loki we're focusing on. As soon as he jumps, the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, picks him up, and they're in the process of taking care of him like they do the other variants, which are these people that stray from the sacred timeline, and they need to get them back on track because the timeline needs to be kept in order to prevent multiverse war. But an agent named Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, picks up Loki and asks him to help him with a very specific Loki case, and the show evolves from there. When I first heard about the show, that's what I was thinking, was that it was like an origin story, that he was going to pop up throughout human history and just influence events, and I was like, I'm not sure how to feel about that. You know, I feel like, character of Loki's kind of done. But then after seeing the trailer finally, I was like, oh, that's the direction they're going in. They're taking that Loki from Endgame and doing some like time travel weirdness with him. Okay, I'm kind of totally for that. And that's definitely one of my favorite things about this show overall, is how bonkers it is with its storytelling. Obviously, with like WandaVision, we're kind of starting to veer into the more kind of weird experimental kind of storytelling with the MCU, because now that we're post the Thanos stuff, it's like, okay, what else can we do to keep people invested to try stuff new? And now they're doing projects like WandaVision and Loki, which is obviously great. When the series started and it took place in this TVA setting, like it looked like old school kind of office type environment, but mixed in kind of perfectly well with like the more futuristic sci-fi kind of tech, like these glowing sticks and like their body armor, and like even like their TemPads, which is how they travel through time. They look like something from like the 60s maybe, but they used them to travel through time, which I found really cool. As far as like the design work goes and how they orchestrated this, I thought they did a really great job of building up a new interesting world. But I was really enjoying the writing for this series, because the show continues to kind of evolve and do different things as it goes on. So what you might think is just Owen Wilson and Loki are going to go on several cases together and solve some time crimes or something. Like by episode 2's ending, you kind of think like, well, damn, like I don't know if he and Owen Wilson will ever, be friends again. And I found that aspect of the writing always exciting, because each week I did not know what was going to come from this series. Each week I was going in like, okay, I have no idea what's about to happen next, but I'm totally all in for whatever Michael Waldron and Kate Herron have created here. I thought these two made a really great creative team, especially Kate Herron with her direction. There are some fantastic visuals in this series, some great set design work, some great cinematography. She just really handles this so well, and it's not as action heavy as you would expect, but even then, like the filmmaking alone, it had me engaged. And even when they do some action stuff, it looks really fantastic. But like if you're going into the finale thinking there's going to be a big battle, there's going to be like some big MCU-esque kind of speeches as characters become heroes or something like that, that's not the finale of this. This isn't like a WandaVision one where it's just, 2 witches flying above in the sky. Not that I even necessarily didn't like that, but I really like the approach for the finale for this one, where it kind of ultimately gets Loki's arc to a close. How when they picked him up, it was the post-Avengers one where he's kind of about chaos and ruling people. But immediately, this version of Loki, is fantastic. And Tom Hiddleston, this is some of his best work as the character. Immediately when he's picked up, he kind of learns early on that the only reason he exists, and why a lot of other like variant Lokis get like pruned, as they call it, which is like, dissolved, get rid of them, is because they try to veer off of what their purpose is, and their purpose is to make other people deemed more important better. So the Avengers, Loki is only important in this timeline to make the Avengers better people. And him and the rest of the audience kind of learning that early on is oddly like a gut punch, because even though in this context he is still post-Avengers kind of villain, it's kind of sad to see him like actually confront a lot of his darker past and like actually confront his emotions and really come to understand like, man, I gotta find something else, because my purpose is actually like nothing. And throughout the rest of the show, seeing the character change and try to adapt to the TVA environment, try to adapt to every new situation, trying new stuff, like it was really exciting to see. But when you get that character all the way to the end point, the finale, and spoiler warning, I will be talking about certain details about this show that you probably don't know if you have been avoiding the internet and have not watched the show yet. So spoiler warning, there's your warning. When he gets to the end and they meet Jonathan Majors, who is playing Kang, but in this episode he is called He Who Remains, because he's not the Kang the Conqueror character that he's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is just a variant that's trying to keep things in order because he knows what's coming if you just let all of these multiverses kind of unleash. Loki kind of going into that situation, initially thinking revenge for what they've done to me, for taking me out of my timeline and all this stuff, and lying to the other people working at the TVA because they don't think they're variants, but they are. But then after hearing him out, he also is kind of faced with like a morality question of like, well, hold on, we might actually have to ditch revenge and just leave him be, you know, or one of us take his place just so we can maintain order. The fact that Loki, like originally, like, you know, he wants to rule just for the sake of chaos and mischief, but then he has grown as a character to look at ruling as like, well, this would be for the better of everybody. You know, this is like the whole multiverse, the whole timeline is at stake kind of situation here. Like, I really enjoyed seeing that, but also seeing him contrast that with the female Loki, Sylvie, played by Sophia Di Martino, is honestly great. Their chemistry is wonderful, but she retains the revenge Loki aspects of the character. So seeing them kind of butt heads in the finale, you know, it was equal parts heartbreaking as well as fascinating because, yeah, if you meet a different version of yourself, you know, not everything would be perfect for you, you know, like you would definitely notice things about yourself, even if it's in a different body, like in this case with Loki. You would start to notice certain things that you understand are you, but things you are also equally annoyed by. But seeing them actually interact as the series goes on and finding, like, you know, love in yourself, literally in this case, with their kind of relationship, their romantic chemistry, you know, there is a part of that was kind of beautiful because you understand what that means for Loki as far as like coming to accept himself, you know. But then to have his kind of heart broken because, you know, those differences eventually collide and she ultimately betrays him. You know, it's really fantastic work. I think Michael Waldron really had a great idea as far as growing these characters as it went along and making this version of Loki like the best version of Loki there is. The finale is honestly like one of my favorite episodes, and I know some people have kind of complained like it's too exposition heavy. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like in this case, I think it's like, you know, you need some explanation. And this character, the Jonathan Majors, He Who Remains, is offering that explanation. And it's not something you can just explain with like, oh, here's one line of dialogue and then we can move on. It's like, no, this kind of complicated stuff. So they need to lay it out. And even then, you know, they intersperse it with other scenes from like another subplot. It's not as exposition heavy as like, you know, just sitting there for like 40 to 50 minutes and characters are just kind of talking and that's the entire episode. There's still like some drama moments and like action, brief action stuff that happens and still a plot that you are definitely intrigued by. So as far as people saying it's exposition heavy as kind of a negative, I don't really understand because also Jonathan Majors killed it in that finale. He's fucking wacky, but he's so much fun to watch and I was just instantly excited to see more of him. Obviously when he comes back, I don't think he'll be acting exactly the same because this is like Wizard of Oz, kind of like kooky, like I'm trying to keep everything together. And then the next time we meet him, he's probably going to be villainous Kang. So that'll be interesting to see how his performance, how this character overall grows in the next couple projects. I'm very excited. I think that's the thing about this show is that it made me more excited for the rest of Phase 4, you know, because it's opening up the possibilities of the multiverse and just doing different weird things in the series now. And it's like, all right, we're done with like the Thanos moment in Endgame. Now we got to move forward. Let's just try a bunch of stuff, you know, let's do things a little weirdly, you know, let's bring in Sam Raimi to do a Doctor Strange multiverse movie, which is probably going to be fucking fantastic. So it not only opens doors for many possibilities in the MCU itself, but it opens the door for possibilities in season 2 of Loki, which is like the post-credit scene. I was very surprised that the post-credit scene isn't like some other scene, some other big hints for something else. It's just, Loki will return for season 2, little stamp. I was like, kind of quaint, but I like it. I feel like we're in a phase where we don't necessarily need post-credit scenes for everything, and a post-credit scene can simply just be like that, where they're just like, hey, this character will be back at some point. It's like, all right, why not? So when they do get around to doing season 2, I'm excited to see where Loki and Sylvie continue to go as characters, because they're all so interesting, and they're in interesting places right now, where Loki, was just betrayed, his heart kind of broken, and it seems like he is lost in like a different TVA, like a multiverse TVA, something like that. And then Sylvie has just murdered a man, and ultimately it's kind of for nothing, because there's like now chaos and a bunch of bad shit is coming. But because she needed that selfish kind of revenge, we're kind of stuck in a rut. But I'm also excited to see what more comes from the Renslayer character, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who when the show started, I was like, totally unsuspecting of this character of anything. But as it went on, I was like, it's not really that she's like a twist villain, just more so she is very much so stuck with these rules of the TVA made by these timekeepers that are all kind of bullshit. But even when they kind of revealed that these 3 timekeeper people are fake, which I kind of, there was a part of me that was kind of guessing, like, I wonder if they're like, if it's all bullshit, and it was. But even then, she's like, these rules were still made for a reason. The person who's really behind this clearly has something going on that we need to stick to. And that character ends in a spot where obviously she's gonna have to come back. They can't just leave it where it was. She has to come back, and they have to continue to grow the character. And I'm interested to see where that goes, because from what I understand in the comics, that character is actually the girlfriend of Kang. So that'll be interesting to see grow, especially since there's a prior, an established connection with the Owen Wilson Mobius character. There's definitely, in their conversations and their acting, there's some hints of like, hey, we've known each other for a long time, like more so than just like, you're my boss and I'm a coworker or whatever. Like, there's some other kind of connection there that I found kind of sweet but heartbreaking for at least Mobius. Owen Wilson, who is, by the way, fantastic in this, he and Tom Hiddleston hit it off so well. Like in that first episode, and he's just like in control of everything, and Loki's like flustering to get out of it. That was so much fun. Owen Wilson, I'm so happy that he is in this show. Owen Wilson in the MCU is something I didn't know I needed, but I'm so happy I've got. Like at one point, there is that fake out kind of moment where he gets pruned, as they call it. And obviously later we learn that, being pruned doesn't mean you're dead. You just get sent to like this end of time kind of place where, you might die here. Like you might actually die here, but you're not dead by the pruning itself. But when that moment happened, there was a part of me that was like, oh no, because I was enjoying that character so much and I didn't want Owen Wilson to go. He needs to ride the jet ski though. They got to give him the jet ski for season 2. That's that's you can't do anything about that. That needs to be in season 2. Even a character like Hunter B-15 surprised me. Wunmi Mosaku, who is in Lovecraft Country recently, she's great in that and great in this. But when it started, I was kind of like, okay, she's just like the, no nonsense. I'm going to beat the fuck out of Loki if he steps out of line, because he's a dangerous lord of mischief, but also a variant, and technically against the time laws. But even that character grew at a point where I was like, this is actually really, really fun and cool. Like I really am liking this character. Miss Minutes, played by Tara Strong, one of the most fantastic voice actresses working today. She's fantastic as Miss Minutes. That jump scare though with her is kind of perfect. I hope we get to see more Miss Minutes, in like a kind of creepy, like I'm actually more self-aware than you may realize kind of role. That would be really fun. But like, what an idea to take like essentially like 50s kind of PSA mascot and actually have them kind of like, they're a hologram, but they're like right in front of you at this TVA place. Like that's honestly kind of genius, and I love that so much. So overall, I adored the show immensely. My only issue, if I had to have any, is that I feel like some of the time travel rules that they were, sometimes they would have a cool line asking a question and then someone would respond, and I was like, I think I need a little more elaboration on that, because I'm not necessarily piecing it together what you mean, but overall this is a fantastic show that I had very little issues with. I really love a lot of the character writing that they had here, a lot of the emotions that they had, especially for Tom Hiddleston confronting those as the character Loki. I think he did a fantastic job here. The score by Natalie Holt is excellent. It's wonderful. The design work itself, the visual effects look fantastic. I love this show. I think it's absolutely wonderful. A better movie than a lot of the recent movies that I have seen, which is kind of, I feel like that's expected for a lot of TV just because TV has more time to do stuff, but especially in the case of this, which just has a really great idea but continues to do different things with it. Loved it. I'm going to give Loki an A. I'm excited for season 2. I know Kate Herron isn't coming back to direct, which is kind of a bummer because I think she added a lot to this. But, I think as long as you still have like the writer's room, that team and Michael Waldron, I think you could still make something really great out of season 2. I'm excited just to see more anything in the MCU at this point. I'm kind of really excited to see what they're paving the way for, especially with the introduction of He Who Remains, who is Nathaniel Richards, which is a great descendant of Reed Richards. Fantastic Four coming on in. That's exciting to me, and I can't wait to see that. But if you've seen Loki, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.